Mia's scream tore through the dark as the whisper faded, her voice echoing like it belonged to someone else, and Alex gripped her shoulders, whispering frantically, "Stay with me, don't listen to it, don't listen," while David stood frozen, his eyes darting wildly as though he could see something neither of them could, and then with a sudden gasp he clutched his head and cried out, they're inside my mind." Before collapsing to his knees, his body shaking as the whispers swelled around them, multiplying, overlapping, until it sounded like 100 voices all speaking at once, and yet every word was the same, "Forever, forever, forever," and Alex, desperate, hauled David up by the arm, shouting, "Move. We have to keep moving." And though the darkness seemed absolute, somehow their feet found direction, pulling them toward a faint glow ahead, a thin line of dim light seeping from beneath the door, and they stumbled toward it, their hands scraping along the wall slick with something they didn't want to name, and when they reached the door Alex shoved it open and they spilled inside, gasping as the light surrounded them, not warm or comforting but cold and gray, illuminating a vast library with shelves stretching higher. Then they could see, the books so ancient their covers seemed grown into the wood itself, their pages whispering on their own, fluttering as though breathing, and Mia, trembling, whispered, "This house, it remembers everything," and as she spoke, a book slid itself from the shelf, landing open at her feet, its yellowed pages filled with scribbles of ink that twisted and shifted, forming words that weren't words at all but symbols that moved, slithering like living things, and Mia gasped, her eyes wide, whispering, "It's writing about us," and Alex leaned closer, horrified to see their own names etched into the parchment, alongside dates past dates that matched their birthdays, and then new ones, blank spaces waiting to be filled, and Alex snapped the book shut, shoving it back toward the shelf, but the shelves groaned, thousands of books trembling at once as though angered, their pages flapping furiously until the sound rose into a deafening roar like a hurricane of whispers, and suddenly books flew from the shelves, their spines splitting open into mouths lined with paper-thin teeth, snapping, biting, tearing at the air, and Alex grabbed Mia's hand, dragging her across the room while David staggered behind, clutching his head as if fighting off unseen hands pulling at his thoughts, and they dove through another door at the far end, slamming it shut behind them, though the muffled sound of the fluttering books still echoed faintly beyond, and inside this new chamber the air was colder still, their breaths coming out in plumes as they realized they had entered what looked like a chapel, pews broken and splintered, the altar at the far end covered in black cloth stained with something dark, and candles burned here too, their flames an unnatural blue that flickered without warmth, and at the altar stood a figure, cloaked, unmoving, its hood drawn low, but even from across the room they could feel its gaze, heavy and piercing, and Mia whispered, don't speak to it," but David, still trembling, took a step forward as though pulled by invisible strings, whispering, "It knows me, it's been calling me since we arrived," and Alex lunged, grabbing his arm, but David ripped free with a strength that wasn't his own, staggering closer to the altar as the cloaked figure slowly raised its head, and beneath the hood there was no face, only a void, deeper than night, pulling at their vision, making Alex's stomach twist as though he was being dragged toward it, and then a voice poured from that emptiness, 1,000 voices speaking as one. "One of you must stay, one of you must serve, one of you must become part of the house," and Mia clutched Alex, sobbing, "No, no, don't listen." But David was already sinking to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Maybe if I do, maybe if I give myself, you two can leave," and Alex screamed, "Don't you dare." But the cloaked figure's void face seemed to widen, swallowing the candle light, and its many-voiced whisper pressed into their skulls, choose or be chosen," and the pews around them groaned as shadows began to rise from the wood itself, stretching, twisting into humanoid shapes with long, clawed hands, their eyeless faces turning toward Alex and Mia, and Alex shouted, "Run!" dragging Mia with him toward a side door, and though David's scream echoed behind them, they didn't stop, bursting through the doorway into another corridor, this one narrower, its walls wet as though the house itself was sweating, and the further they ran the more the corridor narrowed until they were squeezing through, shoulders scraping against the slimy wood, Mia sobbing into Alex's chest, "We left him, oh God, we left him," but Alex kept pushing forward, whispering desperately, "He's not gone, we'll find him, we'll find a way," though his words faltered when at last the corridor opened into a circular room with no doors, no windows, only walls covered in symbols like the ones they had seen on the earlier door, glowing faintly red, pulsing in rhythm with their own heartbeats, and in the center of the room stood a mirror, tall and cracked, its surface rippling like water, and when they looked into it they didn't see themselves but David, standing there, his eyes black, his mouth twisted into a smile that wasn't his, and his voice emerged not from the mirror but from the walls around them, echoing, "You should have stayed with me," and the mirror rippled again, and hands pale, bony, too many burst through the glass, grasping for them with impossible reach, and Alex pulled Mia back, slamming his shoulder into the mirror, shattering it into pieces that scattered across the floor, and for a moment the hands were gone, but the shards reflected not their faces but dozens of David's, all grinning, all whispering, "Forever," until the shards melted into liquid, seeping into the floorboards which then began to writhe, boards rising and twisting like snakes, forcing them back against the wall, and the symbols on the walls flared brighter, the room filling with the scent of burning flesh though nothing burned, and the whispers grew again, louder, angrier, "One must stay, one must serve," and Mia screamed, collapsing to her knees, covering her ears, "Make it stop, make it stop." And Alex pulled her up, shouting into the void, "Take me then, leave her alone." But the house only laughed, a deep, guttural sound that rattled the very bones of the walls, and the floor beneath them split open, revealing blackness below, and with a violent crack the boards gave way, and both Alex and Mia fell screaming into the void as the house swallowed them whole.